자, 오늘 할 게임은 더 스탠리 패러블이라는 게임이에요. 한번 해볼게요. 게임 시작. 뭐야? 됐나?
This is the story of a man
됐다,
named
이제.
Stanley.
스텔리나 남자 이야기입니다.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor at his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-winning, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
이 게임 해보고 싶었어요.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
자, 본인 사무실인데 갑자기 이제 업무 지시가 내려오진 않았대요. 그래가지고 왜 그런가 싶어서 약간 좀 화이트데이 같은 느낌이 나는데. 못 여나? 아무도 없는데?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
그러네, 아무도 없네요. 동료가 다 사라져서 회의실로 가기로 결정을 했대요. 컴퓨터가 굉장히 옛날 거다. 보면 486이야 뭐야. 디스켓 넣는 데 있는데 5.25인치 3.5인치 디스켓 넣는 게 있네. 자, 들어가볼까요? 어제 컴퓨터 켜졌다. 회의실로 가랬지? 일단은 갑시다.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
왼쪽 문으로 들어왔습니다.
Yet there
왔어.
was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
위층에 사장실로 가라는데? 이거 금방 끝날 것 같죠, 느낌이, 게임이.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
올라갔다. 내려가 볼까 한번?
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post.
이게 다 결정이네.
He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy.
이게 결정이 되면 못 가는구나.
All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy.
사장실 갔었어야
And then
되는데.
something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment.
내가 왔니?
No reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
그러네.
Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went?
다리가 안 보이네.
And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all
1인칭이야, 이거.
strange, this can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back
계속 반복되는데 지금 맵이?
to life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined
똑같아?
himself
안 할래 그럼.
and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself
떠올랐대.
soaring through space on a magical star field, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking?
알아 이제.
Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't
이거
have
언제 끝나?
responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life.
다쳤네.
Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin. The
그러니까 설명해주는 사람인가 봐.
The fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
자, 눈을 떴는데.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
이러고 끝인가?
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up like any other.
끝났어?
She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, And in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose
그런 것 같은데?
impressions of
스탠리
her would
같은데?
affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
뭐 이럴 끝인가 봐. 다시 하라는 것 같은데.
Workers were gone. What could it mean?
아, 내가 선택을 잘못했나
Stanley
보다.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
내려가면 안 됐던 거였어.
When Stanley came to a set of two
왼쪽
open
문으로 갔다.
doors,
아, 뭐 시작하자마자 배드엔딩이요. 아니, 스탠이 남자야. 남자인데 죽었나봐. 내려갔다가.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
여기서 이제 사장실을 갔었었는데 내가 내려갔거든. 이렇게 내려갔는데 죽었어.
Coming to a
올라갔어야 됐어.
staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
사장실 어디야?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in
반복돼요.
disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth
번호판?
that his boss
이거
had
뭐고?
been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret
아,
pin
비밀번호.
2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
비밀번호 열라는 건데? 2845라 했나? 장난? 탐험 어드벤처래요. 탐험 어드벤처. 네이버 쳐보니까.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless.
맞네.
since he could
2845.
never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
2.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
새로 열리는 길. 뭐 탐험 그거란데? 탐험 어드벤처. 자. 뭐 누르라나 뭐. 됐다. 뭐 하는 게 없고 이제 그냥 선택지래 선택지. 시키는 대로만 하면 되나봐.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself. To
평범한 샐러리맨이 어느 날 갑자기
why did
동료들이 다
he feel
없어진
this
거야.
now, when for years it had never occurred to him. This question would not go unanswered for
왜 없어졌나 찾아보다가 이렇게 여기까지 오게 됐는데.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
엔딩이 달라지는 것 같아. 나 시작하자마자 배드 엔딩 난 걸렸어. 시작하자마자 죽어가지고.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
아, 여기가 다 텔레비전인가봐. 여기 보이죠? 이게 다 모니터들인가봐. 뭐 하는데?
Now the monitors came to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building.
아, 이게 다 직원들을 감시했구만.
The
CCTV로.
lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
모르겠어요. 직원들 다 없었는데 그게 어떻게 없었는지 아직 몰라.
No.
찾아야 돼.
He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions.
뭐 감정을 조종당했다 뭐 이런
Or
것 같은데.
sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and
안전장치를 해제한다는데? 안전장치가 어디 있는 거야? 여긴가? 마인드 컨트롤 뭐야? 임대를 뭐야? Awaiting input. 여긴가?
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty,
상황
his
알았습니다.
obligation, to put an end to this
오브로 누르면 되는 건가?
place and to everything it stood for.
자, 오브! 꺼버렸어. 이거 죽은 거 아니야?
Blackness and a rising
안
chill
죽었구나.
of uncertainty. Was it over?
오브 누르라며. 시킨더랬구만.
Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved.
이거 끝난 거야 그러면?
Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp?
여기서 오늘 눌렀어야
What
됐나?
other mysteries did this strange building hold?
설마 이러구나.
But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power.
아 남들 뭐 어디 가는지 내가 알 필요가 뭐 있어. 나만 살면 되지.
Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
열리면 나갑니다.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin.
끝난 거 아니야 이거?
Feeling of
아 이게 끝난 거 같아 이거.
the immense possibility of the
이거 끝난 거
new
같아요.
path before him. This was exactly the way
해피엔딩이지 이게.
right now that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
자 엔딩 봤네요. 이제 꺼버릴까? 뭐 시작한지 이제 10몇 분밖에 안 됐는데. 자 다시 여기서부터 시작.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley had to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed it.
오늘 눌렀어야 했어 오늘.
A set of two open doors. He entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single
아 나 진짜
person
똑같은 거 다시 하는 거 진짜 짜증나는데.
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs
오른쪽에도?
to his boss's office.
일단 오늘 한번 눌러보자. 그래도.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered
아니야.
aloud
2845였나?
to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation.
2845였나?
But his attention was caught by a keypad. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just
추천님
let the
감사하고.
narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't
아, 왜?
so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming new age music.
갑자기 음악 나와 또? 왜? 너 빨려서 그런가? 아, 이거 했잖아, 왜?
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley
됐다.
calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
아, 또 흉가 얘기 물어본다. 하루도, 빠짐없구만. 1년 넘도록 그냥 매일매일 물어보는구만.
Stanley walked straight ahead through
지옥에서
the
살아
door of the
돌아왔다.
red mind control facility.
여기도 있나? 일단 온 눌러볼게, 온. 옆에 왼쪽 길도 있었구만.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his
알았어, 이거 빨리 좀 와.
emotions had been manipulated to
왔다, 왔다.
accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own
일단 뭔가 음모가 있나 봐.
someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation.
여기 위도
Controls
있고.
labeled with emotions.
아, 여기는 막혔네.
Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from
오프라인이야?
that very place.
안 눌렸는데?
And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery
올라가네?
would never again exert its terrible power
예, 뭐 눌렀어?
over human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
열렸어, 이거. 잠깐만. 막 열려, 막. 다 누르고. 좀 화면이 좀 어둡죠? 약간 밝게 할까? 이게 밝게 하는 것 같은데? 뭐야? 오버레이 고급 밝게 없잖아! 아, 없나봐. 밝게 하는 게 없나봐. 네. 화면이 이렇게 멀어졌어. 좀 멀어진 것 같은데? 화면이? 요거 때문에 그런가봐. 여기서 이제 오늘
And when at last he found the source of the room's power.
자,
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so
로딩
much
마인드
that
컨트롤
machine
시스템.
can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that.
뭐 어떡하라고.
I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency
자폭장치야.
detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say,
자폭장치를 겼대.
now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story
really?
now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious
야, 야,
is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened.
무슨 일은 일어났는지
I
말해준대.
erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock. Why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley.
시간 더 줬네.
It doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me.
뭔가 날 살려준다는데 뭔지 모르겠는데.
That this video game can be beaten, won, solved. Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep
저 타이머는 당신이 빨리.
It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble.
뭐야?
This is not a
나 죽겠는데 이러다?
It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me. All a part
뭐 어떡하라고?
And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say happily ever after.
뭐야 이거? 어떡하라고 이거? 자 다시 또
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it be?
방금 한 9시 반?
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps
일단은
he
배드 엔딩입니다.
memo.
아까는 거기서 오브를 눌러야 돼. 오브를.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors,
오브로 누르면은 해피엔딩이었어. 이제 또 다른 선택을.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley
아까 그
decided
왼쪽으로
to
한번
go
가볼게요.
up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
뭐였어? 약 빨고 만든 거 아닐까?
Okay, I think we all know the drill by now. Blah, blah, blah. Dark secrets, the keypad. Stanley pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway. Quelle surprise.
아이, 야. 됐다. 아, 바로 열었나? 여기도 켜 있나? 이거 넣고. 여기 좀 특이하네, 게임이. 야, 뭐 하는 거 없이 그냥 선택이네.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
여기로 가야지. 이번엔 여기로.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
여기 복도 끝에서 잔인한 죽음을 맞이한대.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back
돌아갈
on
기회가
track.
있습니다.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
아, 이렇게 떨어지는 거야? 살았는데?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever.
아직 안 죽었어.
Stanley can't see the big picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is.
약간 좀 매트릭스 같은 그런 느낌인데요?
Loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
빠영.
Farewell, Stanley,
살았어.
cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws.
살았나봐.
In a single visceral instant, Stanley was
아니네.
obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body,
죽었다는
killing
소리네.
him instantly.
직사했습니다. 아닌데? 살았는데? 스탠리 패러블.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever.
아, 죽은 거야?
What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created
지금
for you
사후세계인가
in
본데?
advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
아, 이미 죽어 있었다는데? 여기서 번호 잘해야 되는데? 버튼 사운드 잘 눌러야 될 것 같은데? 4번. 아, 나 4번 5번 눌렀어. 일단은 시작부터 죽어 있었대. 여기서는 한 번 더 누를까? 누가 누르는 거 뭐 없는 것 같은데? 아, 이게 사운드구나. 여기 뭐 갤러리야? 작품인가봐. 뭐였는 거야 이게? 그래 레아야, 레아도 크리스마스. 아 19일이구나 벌써. 이거 뭐야? 2, 1. 아, 나 이게 터지는 줄 알았네. 나 폭탄인 줄 알았어. 이번 날은 그냥 친구들하고 술이나 먹어야겠다. 무서운 건 아닌 것 같아요. 어떤 게임인지 잘 모르겠어. 탐험 게임이라는데. 엑시트인데 여기가. 여기로 나오면 되나보다.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time
아우, 죽은 거야 이제? 나가라는데? 게임을? 뭐 게임이 이래? 특이하구만. 그래. 뭐야. 아이, 장르가 좀 특이하네. 자, 다시 가자. 이번에 오른쪽 갈 거야.
To a set of two open doors. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first,
아, 예, 오시면
just to
반갑습니다.
admire it.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been
심리
worth the detour
탐험인가?
after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed. But
Eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
열려있는 첫 번째 문 들어왔어요. 여기서도 또 이제 선택자 가리는구나.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
나가면 문 닫히는데 어떡하지? 여기로 내려가 볼까 그냥? 저기는 아까 그 회의실 가는 길이야.
But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here,
왼쪽으로 가는데?
left.
안 열리네. 여기만 열리네.
Oh, no.
아야!
No, it's to the right. My mistake. No, not the right.
뭐야?
Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please?
뭐야 이거?
Now, let's see. We went down right, left, down, left, right. Yep. Okay. Yes, I've got it now. This story
어딨죠?
is absolutely, definitely this way.
아, 게임 특이하네. 대중적이진 않고 좀 특이하네.
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed
Spoiler.
to be here yet. This is all a spoiler.
눈을 감아요.
Quick, Stanley, close your eyes. Okay. We just.
아, 거기 여기로 왔는데?
Who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. The whole story completely
결국
unuseful.
여기로 왔는데?
How about rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning.
다시 하라는데?
Suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay. From the top.
아, 처음부터 다시 하래. 뭐야, 이거? 아, 네.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley... Wait.
여긴 또 이제 막혔어.
No, I restarted. I swear I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Oh, did something change? Stanley, did you change anything when we were back in that room with all the monitors?
아, 이게 또 미묘하게, 미묘하게, 이게 서로 영향이 있나봐.
Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere. Okay then, it's an adventure. Come, Stanley, let's find the story.
뭐야. 문이 지금 5개 열렸어, 5개, 어떡해. 처음에 2개였는데 지금 5개 열렸어. 나 여기로 갈래. 가까운 데로. 이게 미묘하게 조금씩 이게 다 되나봐. 길이 복잡하네, 이거.
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again?
아, 미로요, 이거.
Unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again.
아, 뺑뺑이 도는 것 같은데?
Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
다시 하라는데?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
이 게임 뭐 약발고 만들었네? 왜 이래, 이거? 아, 이제 문이 없어!
It's worse. I might be remembering this wrong. It's possible the story is back where we just came from. Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
아, 게임 뭐 자주 하죠. 아, 뭐 하라고, 이거, 그러면. 장르가 그냥 모험 어드벤처라는데요? 네이버 찾아보니까. 근데 이건 모험이 아니라
I knew we'd miss something. The story.
미로인데, 미로 어드벤처인데, 미로. 그 실험용 생지 같아.
No, wait. Never mind. Not the story. Okay, let's head
아,
back
또
the
여기는 또
other way
막힌 길이야.
and retrace our steps.
모험이 아니라 이건 그냥 미로 같은데, 미로. 헐.
Now this... Well, I'll be honest. I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so. I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you
배경이
remember?
바뀌어버렸어.
Well, do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing,
엔딩을 찾는 모험인가?
you win! Congratulations!
뭐야, 내가 이겼다는데?
A lot of hard work, and it really paid off. So, good job. Oh no, I don't feel right about this at all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay, I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time.
아, 또 재시작한대.
I have to restart.
뭐 이래, 게임이.
All right, I've got a solution.
This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help
라인을
of the
따라가는데?
Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that? You see? The line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination
아, 제가
still a story?
진짜 싫어하는 게 똑같은 거 또 하는 거 싫어하거든요.
Forward, are we
지금 계속 똑같은 거 계속
implying a
반복하니까.
journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature of life itself? Whoa. Hang on. That got a bit weird back there. Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what? I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
음악은 왜 나와 갑자기? 신나네 그냥. 아 신나 죽겠다. 게임 특이하네.
Cut the music, go back and look at that fern. Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell?
아 여기 또 왔어.
No, not again. Line, how could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you
또 재시작이라는데.
can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
뭐야 이거?
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure.
아 뭔가 달아버렸는데.
For us, we're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring,
아 로건님
mysterious.
많고요.
Oh, this all sounds
좋아요.
adorable. Why don't we simply start
네.
wandering in? Well, I don't know. How about this direction?
이번 일로 가라는데?
Now, yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be.
이야기를 만들어가고 있어.
What do you want our story to be? Go wild. Use your imagination.
아 진짜로 하루 만에
Whatever it might
왔어요.
be, Stanley, I'm ready for it.
27인치? 예.
Oh no, not you again, Stanley. I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or rooms.
모르겠어 나도.
Just don't acknowledge it. We should be fine.
뭐 하면 엔딩인지 나도 모르겠어. 나도 모르겠다.
Ah, a choice. We get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control. How important we
계속
make this
재시작하고 있어,
the
지금,
opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute.
아 빙빙 돌아왔는데 아 뭐야 이거?
So I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere at the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is
이거 뭐 어떡하라고?
another victory for logic. Come, Stanley, our destiny awaits.
뭐야 이거?
Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is?
컴퓨터.
One giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game what, eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined? So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to...
다시 하는데?
Well, what if I don't want to forget?
또 다시 하는 것 같은데?
My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? How do I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this?
Is it really?
아 머리 아파네.
No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. And the timer stopped? Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle?
문 생겼다.
Whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen?
자,
So, okay.
이건 딱 하루짜리네 게임.
Now just
하루짜리야.
wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story, wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime,
아, 뭐 또 다시야? 야 하루. 또.
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he
어떡하지?
entered the door on his left.
일로 가야 되나? 왼쪽은 거의 다 해본 것 같은데? 오른쪽으로 한번 더 가야지.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. What a beautiful, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
아, 저기 또 직진, 여기 또 길 있네. 여기 또 길 있네.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
아, 여기 또 길이 있었어. 뭐 어떡하라고?
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be
물리
difficult,
찬 거 같죠,
but
여기는?
the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let
그녀를
her
대처해주세요.
into
뭐 여자
your
있나?
life. She's
갑자기면
been
여자.
waiting.
여자들이.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the...
전화로 받으래. 단순한 게임.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling.
그냥 평범한 게임 하는데요. 이게 뭔가 하고 해봤는데 나도 공포 게임인 줄 알고 했는데
Okay, very good.
공포 게임이 아니네.
All right, now.
화이트데이 같은 그런 게임 줄 알았는데.
Tell me all about
아 그냥. 뭐야 이게 여자야?
Gotcha.
이거 마네킹 아니야 이거.
Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
자 갑시다.
This is a
막하는데?
very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
키보드 8을 누르세요.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
아
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's
이제 언제 진짜 엔딩 나오나?
he's
나올라나?
going home. Now he's coming back to
모르겠어요.
Earth. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
G.
But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
큐.
And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he
어디
imagined
있어?
that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
T.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
C.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing
그럼 이거 결국에는 스탠리가 죽은 후인가?
that he
시작부터
might
이제
always
그게
feel this
죽은 후인가?
Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if
내용이?
he played just one more time.
게임 딱 시작할 때 그잖아요. 그 동료가 없잖아. 그게 스탠리가 죽어서 그 사후세계인가? 그래서 동료가 안 보이는 건가?
But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality,
그렇습니다.
all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets. The more he forgets which
그러게. 아유, 혼란스러워. 그러니까는 중간부터 봐도요, 별 내용이 없어. 그러니까는 그냥 사무실에서 그냥 되게 평범한 셀러리맨이요. 그냥 사무직인데 어느 날 갑자기 모니터에 아무런 업무 지시가 안 내려와요. 그래가지고 나가보니까 동료가 없는 거야. 그래가지고 그냥 헤매는 거야, 사무실에서. 이거 가운데 이거 하는 거 뭔지 아세요? 이거 뭔지 아는 사람? 이거. 상품은 없어요. 시청자 퀴즈. 상품 없는 시청자 퀴즈.
And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer. That as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself.
이거 스탠리가 죽은 것 같아.
To me. He won't stop. Here, watch this.
이러다 뭐 가로사로 죽었나 뭐 이런 것 같아.
Screen asks you to push a button. Do not do
아,
it.
정답. 연필깎이입니다. 요거 연필깎이에요. 맞아.
You see? Can he just not hear me?
이제 왔네. 다시 자기 사무실로
That he'll
돌아왔네.
understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself. How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
죽은 건가? 스탠리가 죽은 건가 봐.
I suppose I can't. Not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I
주어 지금
simply
스탠리의
create
사후생인가
an
봐.
intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again.
죽으세요.
And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button.
죽으라는 거 아니야? 죽었어! 내용이 스탠리가 죽은 건가 봐. 죽었나 봐. 스탠리가. 야, 죽은 거야. 여기서 일하다가 과로사로 죽었나 봐. 여기에 스탠리 자리거든요. 427번.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it
뭐
be?
그런 거 같죠.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of two open
왼쪽으로
doors,
다시 한번 가보죠.
he
왼쪽에
entered
또
the
뭔가
doors.
하나 안 한 게 있을 수도 있어. 가보죠.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
유리창 안에 뭐 별거 없어. 여기 아까 내려가 봤거든요.
Staircase,
내려가니까
Stanley
저기는 진짜
walked
별거
upstairs
아니었어.
to his boss's office.
아까는 오브 끈 게 그건가 봐. 안 되네. 여기도 하나 있는 것 같은데. 베스룸.
Here's the door. Just
여기 그냥 열려있네? 그냥 가라는데? 그냥 특이하네.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that
여기는 뭐
mind
없었죠?
control
죽는 거였지.
facility. The lights
네, 내가 보기
rose on
스탠리의
a
사후세계
enormous
같아.
room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley
아, 죽은지
thought to
모르는
himself.
거예요.
Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
여기서 5분 누르는 게 해피엔딩인가 봐요. 그죠? 5분밖에 없나 봐. 이게 해피엔딩인가 봐. 아까도 잠깐 했었는데 이거.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty.
여기서 이제 천국으로 가는 건가?
Was it over?
아, 그게 지는데 같아?
He had won.
이게 지는데 아니야?
Defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command.
죽는 게 이제 천국으로 가는 거죠.
And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved.
아까 그 엔딩? 그런 거
His
같아.
co-workers gone.
아까 그거는
Being
죽은 거
free from
그거
the
같아.
machine's grasp. What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this.
이게 딱 마지막에 나오는 장면
For
아닌가?
it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking.
이상해.
Perhaps his goal had
왜
not
다 한 거
been to
같은데?
understand, but to
네.
let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know.
이제 선택지 웬만한 거 다 한 거
It was
같아요.
perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
여기까지 할까 이거? 자, 나갈까 이제 여기가 이제 천국인가 봐.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him.
다른 게임 할까?
This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
스탠리는 행복했습니다. 행복했대. 예. 이러고 끝인가봐. 그죠? 다시 사무실로. 아니구나. 다르다! 오, 달라졌어.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
맥이 틀려. 맥이
Stanley
틀려.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When
아이,
Stanley
똑같잖아,
came to a set
여기서부터.
of two open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way.
똑같네. 아이씨, 맨만 살짝
Stanley knew
바뀌고.
it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
에라이.
The lounge was sublime.
아, 맞다. 하나 또 있었어. 하나. 여기서요.
Eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left,
여기서 하나 뭐 안 한 거 있어.
and so he
여기서.
detoured through the maintenance section.
나 여기로 눌러 내려갔잖아요.
Head to the
이거 안
opposite
했다,
door
이거.
and got back on track.
여기서. 눌러 가야지, 눌러. 이거 안 한 거 같아. 막혔구나. 막혔어. 국정원이 막았어.
Yet there was not a single.
똑같잖아, 이거.
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley
Ah,
decided to go
sorry.
up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase,
똑같잖아, 이거.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
열렸다. 여기 아예 열려있네,
The
그냥.
door, just go.
똑같네. 그러게, 이제 그만해야 될 것 같은데. 그만하는 게 해피엔딩 같은데, 이거. 왜 이래, 게임이.
Stanley walked straight ahead through
좀
the large
독특한
door
시도긴 한데.
mind control
예,
facility.
너무 독특해서. 여기까지 할게요. 녹화는 여기까지.